Brad Johnson, and welcome to the second episode of the Psi Academy, where in this episode we're going to be talking about trance states. So in the first episode of the Psi Academy, we were looking into being able to achieve an inspiration state. We're able to look into the energies that have not served us and being able to transition them and working in regards to positive alignment and being able to really encapsulate ourselves and connect very deeply to inspiration, being able to channel this energy coming through us, coming through other extensions of our consciousness such as guides, higher self, etc. But in this particular episode, through trance states, we're going to kind of look into going a little bit more deeper past the idea of inspiration. So what am I talking about when I'm looking into trance states? Isn't there just the trance state? Well, no, there are different, you could say, aspects as it pertains to trance state. Then we'll be taking a look at the partial trance state. And then finally the full trance state. Now basically these represent divisions. These represent different forms of segregations as it relates to trance itself. Really, if we're looking into what trance really is defined as, we would look more so into the full trance state. Basically, there is a light version and a partial version as well too. So we could basically look at the light version as an equivalent to the alpha brainwave state. Okay? In the alpha brainwave state, you are much more focused. You're much more aware. You are concentrating. You're in that particular strong state of concentration and you're able to really pick up things quite well. This kind of represents somewhat of a light daydream state. So you are cycling in between a type of conscientious focus and a daydream state, just being able to feel like you're just kind of drifting off into La La Land in that particular way. But what that basically is giving the idea of is that you're feeling softer. You're feeling this inner wave of concentration and focus, and it's kind of taking you into a daydream landscape in that way. And then we have the partial trance state, which represents more of the theta brainwave state. Okay, and this is again more of an advanced daydream. You could say that it's also in that sense a good aligned aspect of meditation as well too. When you're going into a deeper meditation where you're still somewhat conscious, you're a little bit more deeper into a daydream state, but you are again receiving a great deal more of information. It's kind of like you're in that lucidity between the physical realm and the etheric realms, being able to just kind of go into that wavy energy of the idea of the theta state or the advanced daydream state. Okay, so alpha would be kind of like a light daydream, just kind of more so focusing on focus and just having that kind of spaced out situation. This would be much more of an advanced daydream state when you're in a theta. You're just kind of crossing the thresholds between being awake and going into very deep states of daydream. And of course we have the full trance state, which would accumulate to a delta brainwave state. And this would basically be sleepless, or rather sleep state without dreaming. So a dreaming absence in the sleep state, or going into like a type of Zen meditation. So it's basically not looking into a rapid eye movement, which of course leads into the idea of a deep sleep. But you're just kind of going into that deeper sleep area without the dreaming absence there. You are basically just interlocked into this very deep sleep state of being. Now, so these three represent the particular brands of trance states. Now, basically, when I connect with Adronis and communicate with him in channeling, you could say I'm basically in between these two here, between the light and the partial states. I haven't really gone too deeply into the full state, although I've had some conscientious experiences with full deep trance just before falling asleep, and you feel this amazing, almost kind of like a psychedelic adventure, because everything becomes heightened when you're just on the cusp of falling asleep, when you just feel that kind of full deep delta state coming in. I've had quite a few of those particular experiences, and I'm able to pick up clairaudient transmissions from all over the world. I once had a situation when I was going into the full trance state just before going to sleep and picking up people who were speaking Spanish. I wish I recorded at that time, because I was able to intercept every single word they were saying. And I don't speak Spanish. I'm just a single English, speaking guy. But I was able to go into that full state in trance, just like a sliver before you hit REM sleep. And it's a very fascinating experience. You're able to go through many different visions. It's kind of like you can almost feel like your body is just about to leave and go off into the dream plane. But that would give an idea of being able to go into this full trance state. Just kind of like at the sliver, the razor's edge, just before going off into REM sleep, just before going off into the dream plane. So again, that gives the idea of a full trance state. And you're not really conscious whatsoever. You don't really have too much awareness about what's going on. I was able to just kind of pick this up in regards to the Spanish talking. But when I woke up, that's when I felt, oh my goodness, I heard a bunch of people talking in Spanish. And it was really interesting kind of conversation. It was almost like they were talking about a soccer game or something. But that was what I was experiencing in the full trance state. But just really feeling that many times when you go into the deep, full trance state, a lot of people do not have any particular type of memory. I wouldn't have had memory for this if it wasn't something that I really kind of imprinted on, because I just woke up from it, and I remember I was hearing those particular voices in Spanish, and I just found it was fascinating. So I mainly imprinted that just by having that awareness while going into this deep trance state. So why do we want to do this? Why are we going into these particular types of states, these altered frequencies? Well, this helps us look into what's known as depth perception. So when we are basically in our awoken state can range anywhere from a beta or even to gamma wave frequencies. Now, gamma would represent the highest brainwave state. It would be anywhere from about 50 to 100 hertz. Now, there are some very enlightening states when you go into the gamma frequency. When you're in the gamma frequency, this represents that everything is really accelerated. Everything is picking up. There's a lot more going on inside the connectivity of the human brain. There's a lot more going on within your own energy. In fact, when I'm going into the state with Adronis, I dance between the light and the partial states, but I also come around and I connect to a gamma state as well too. Because basically what's happening is when I'm in the state with Adronis and I'm channeling, I'm feeling all of this incredible buzzing frequencies quite often when I'm channeling his energy. Especially when he is downloading information into me. I can feel this buzzing of energy. It's kind of like just someone's like lightly fluttering their fingers all across your head. And you're feeling this connectivity. And I was actually hooked up to a quantum biofeedback device twice back in 2010 when I was doing a public channeling. And that quantum biofeedback device was able just to confirm absolutely everything about Adronis, who he said he was, the frequency that he exists in, the connectivity states that I was going through as well too. So it was quite fascinating. So again, the gamma state is kind of like that heightened brainwave state of connectivity, that heightened state of awareness. Kind of like receiving the ultimate blessings in that particular way. Beta wave state, again, is something that we are naturally operating in quite commonly throughout the day. Again, we can have certain degrees of focus and concentration within that frequency range as well, too. But we're going to get back into depth perception, because this is a big one. So when we're looking into depth perception, we're looking in being able to access more of our own conscious selves, something that again goes beyond that layer. So we're moving beyond that particular pattern of the conscious self, and we're going into the subconscious. So the subconscious can really represent all three of these ranges. If you are able to go much more deeper into trance, you're able to access even the unconscious or the superconscious mind. So some people may ask, well, Brad, how am I able to achieve these particular trance states? What I would say is that if we're looking into, firstly, the light trance state, I would say I just want you to remember a time, maybe when you were doing an exam or you were doing a test, and you just felt really, really focused on studying the question, and just kind of feeling that floaty sensation when an answer came to you. Well, that's giving you an idea of a light or an alpha state, is when you just have this kind of strong focus, strong concentration. And it's kind of just like you're answering the question without thinking about it. It's just like you know what you're going to say. You know what you're going to write, even before thinking about it. Well, that would represent a type of light trance state or an alpha wave state. It's basically you're connecting, you're focusing, and you just receive this information. You may not even consciously, logically know what the answer is, but something just comes to you. You don't know how that happened, and you just start writing it out. And of course, your paper gets scored, and you ace the answer. Well, that again represents a light or an alpha wave state, kind of in the cross between a light daydream or an advanced focus state. Okay? Now, if we're looking into a partial trance state, theta, the advanced daydream, it's kind of like we're in kind of la-la land. We're just really focusing on something, and we become so immersed into that reality that we lose touch of this current physical reality that we're in. It's kind of like a person is snapping their fingers and saying, hey, Brad, you there? Hey, wake up. Earth to Brad, come in, right? Because you're so entranced in that deep daydream state. You're like, oh, what? Sorry, what happened? So those, again, represent a type of theta state, because you're moving into that reality. You're no longer even consciously aware of the present reality that you're living in. You've immersed yourself into another particular reality that represents that focus. That would be very constitutive of a partial theta advanced daydream state. Okay? Sometimes it can almost be like a kind of like a light map as well too, like a cat nap. You can even go into that. Same thing in regards to theta healing as well too, is that you're entering those kind of advanced perceptual daydream states, and you're being able to heal in that way. But these aren't, in that sense, just random aspects of focus that you're going through. It is trained aspects of advanced focus, of advanced daydream in that way, immersing yourself into these realities and holding space so that you can heal, facilitate healing in regards to theta state healing, or theta state facilitation. And we'll be talking about that more in an upcoming episode, one of the upcoming episodes of the Healer's Guide, relating to theta state healing. And of course, then we have the full state. Well, what does that represent? Again, as previously talked about, it is like a thin line, just a small sliver before entering REM sleep, before actually going off into the dream plane, before actually just leaving your body. That would be the peak area of the full trance state. So just before you're touching that thin line, before going off into the dream state. So like I was talking about with the idea of hearing that Spanish commentary that I heard, and I would just happen to remember it and pick it up and retrieve it. But other than that, it was kind of really hard to explain. Experiencing that in the moment almost felt like it was oblivious to me until I woke up and I just was able to retrieve that information that came through. But it was most definitely a trance state. So there is other particular layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just for example, as it pertains to a full-out trance state. There is another particular type of state that exists when you go into the deeper aspects of trance, into the idea of delta. Okay? This is known as ensoulment. Now basically, this is the vibration when a soul comes into the body. So basically, when you were a young child, young baby, floating in your mother's womb, at the 49th day, the soul completely enters the baby's body. This is confirmed within the Tibetan and the Egyptian books of the dead. On the 49th day comes ensoulment, because that is the day that the pineal gland is fully online, the seat of the soul in that way. So ensoulment is a deep trance state that allows the current host soul to temporarily vacate their own body and actually put themselves in a form of stasis and being able to have another particular type of energy occupy their soul. Occupy their body, sorry. Another soul occupying their body. Now, this is referred to as ensoulment. It can also be referred to as a walk-in state. Okay? So basically, where there have been people who have been walk-ins, which basically means that, again, the inhabitant soul that once hosted the body has now vacated, and they are leaving for good. They're gone. And basically, another aspect of that host soul's oversoul comes in and takes its place. This is all part in that sense of achieving a new experience within the life theme of the entity. So basically, a previous version that has completed its mission, completed its soul contract with the body, vacates. Another aspect of that oversoul comes in, occupies the body, and begins a new life theme as it pertains to the essence of that soul. When that walk-in experience happens, the astrological data of that host body is now connotative to the very day that that took place. So let's say if it was a person who was a Pisces in that sense, on February 5th, 1977, if that was their birthday, all of a sudden they feel this particular type of ensoulment happen, and now a new essence comes into the body on March 25th, 2002, in that sense. So basically, March 25th, 2002 would be new astrological data as it pertains to that soul. That soul no longer has the vibration of the previous astrological data. As soon as they open their eyes and they become conscious in the body, the astrological data corroborates to that very point in time to where the walk-in came through, right? So that's giving the idea of people who have had walk-in experiences or are walk-ins themselves. That would be something to really consider as well, too, is the day that the new host soul came into the body and had that timestamp pertaining to their astrological data. So you would not look at your old astrological archive. That was from the previous soul that once occupied the body. They have now left and they've gone back into the ethers. So now a new particular soul comes in and has this experience, opens their eyes for the first time, and in that very moment where they were first conscious is the stamp that comes in as it pertains to astrological data. So ensoulment is also something that can represent a temporary measurement of time. So for example, if you are communicating with a certain spirit guide and they have a contract pertaining to the idea of you going into a very deep trance state and actually being able to achieve ensoulment. So what will happen is you will consciously feel yourself leaving the body and going into stasis. And so that's basically just working within a particular type of astral realm and seeing perhaps some very phenomenal imagery, thoughts, emotions, feelings, etc. contained in that particular realm for a certain amount of time. Then the new soul will come in and they will temporarily occupy the body and they will be able to stand up and interact in that particular way through the body. So again, there are certain channels who have been able to perform ensoulment or walk-in states of channeling. Okay? This is something that must be agreed to between the host and the guest essence in regards to that happening. So it's a soul contract that is created. It's not for everybody to go into this particular state of ensoulment. So if you have not had some type of prior interaction or conversation as it pertains to the spirit guide, because the spirit guides will often tell you, I will take myself into your body and you will be put into a type of stasis while I communicate with everybody here. And then when that time is up, that soul returns back into the ethers, you return from stasis, and you connect back into the human body. So a very, very fascinating concept, but that has actually been what has happened as it pertains to other particular forms of entities and agreements that they have worked with. So again, ensoulment. But again, going back into the aspect of depth perception. So if we're looking for depth perception, if we're looking and understanding more about it, we are basically just attempting to look more into the subconscious layers of ourselves. This is really helping us to dig into our soul contracts. This is really helping us to dig more into the patterns that we have been experiencing in other lifetimes. So when a person is able to go from light to partial to full trance states, to being able to heighten their connectivity to gamma frequencies and receiving these heightened connectivity states, they can receive a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of insight as it relates to their lifetimes in different realities. So some of them can constitute with Earth, some of them can constitute with other particular forms of planets or other realms of existence. So when you're going into these states, you're really just accessing the depths of your own perception. So again, as we talked about, going into the light state, the alpha, like that concentrated state of focus, the partial, the theta, that kind of advanced daydream state. So again, just when people are snapping their fingers at you and say, hey, wake up, wake up. And of course, the full state, which is again, just that sliver before going off into REM sleep. So we all have the capability of working with this. Meditation, again, is a very, very good guide. You can also do this in regards to pre-sleep, or basically going off into the dream plane. But you have to be a little bit more conscientious of that particular way. Just like how people would prepare themselves to access lucid dreaming or vivid dreaming. They would create anchors for themselves. So basically what they would do is they would be conscientious of them just beginning to drift off, just beginning to fall asleep and being able to catch themselves just before doing it. That can be tricky. It can be a challenge. But you do have the capability to work with your mind on a heavy mental disciplinary level. And you'll just feel that energy just before you fall asleep. And sometimes you can just create an anchor, a signal, some type of imagery or symbol that will pop into your mind once you enter that state. And now it's like something is quote unquote on autopilot. And you're becoming aware when you're in that full trance state. And now an energy can communicate through you. So basically being able to communicate with a deeper aspect of the subconscious, or even to peak aspects of the unconscious or the superconscious. So basically going into these altered frequencies. So we're going to try a little exercise right now, just going into the light trance state. Okay. So I just want you to go ahead and close your eyes right now. You do not have to concern yourself with the breath. You're just being present in this state. And in your mind, I want you to imagine that you are holding an apple in your hands. As you're holding an apple, I want you just to be able to imagine that you are able to turn it with your hand. And I want you to really pay attention to the texture of this apple. What does this apple look like? What about its texture? Is it fresh? Is it rotting? What is it? I just want you now to see that apple slowly disappearing from your hand, like it's evaporating into thin air. All right, and just open your eyes. Congratulations, you were just in an alpha light trance state. Because what you were doing is you were focusing on that apple. And you were being able to look at the textures, but you were still quite coherent pertaining to your surroundings. You were not basically completely immersive as if a person were to step inside the room and say, hey, you, how's it going? You were basically able to snap out of that and give them your attention, right? So that is moving into a light, alpha, light daydream, visionary type state, right? Now we're going to try one with the partial. Okay, we can't really demonstrate the full, but we're going to work on the partial trance state here. All right, so let's go ahead now and close our eyes. And this time we're going to take a full deep breath into the nose and out through the mouth. And I just want you to imagine now that you are getting lighter and lighter. I want you to imagine now that your feet do not feel so heavy being placed on the ground. That in fact that they feel lighter than air. I want you to feel as if all of the weight that represents your body is now becoming as light as a feather. And I just want you to imagine a rainbow within your mind. I just want you to transfix, connect to that rainbow energy. Because I want you to look deeper into that rainbow, because there is something there for you. This rainbow is calling to you. And within the spectrum of its colors, you will discover that something there is ready to convey a message to you. So I want you to completely immerse yourself into that rainbow. That is the only reality that exists right now, is between yourself and the rainbow that you are seeing right now. Because there is a message contained within that bow. A message contained within those colors. I just want you to imagine that you're entering that rainbow right now. And that you're just able to look at all of the color spectrums and seeing these rays of light entering your mind and being able to convey a specific message for you. Just open yourself up, go deeper, increase your depth perception. And just let the colors of the spectrum of the rainbow communicate with you deeper and deeper and deeper. What does it feel like to be in these colors of the rainbow? What experience are you going through in this moment? Just stay with it. You don't have to worry about explaining. Just stay with that energy of the rainbow. What is it attempting to tell you? Just listen. Just be aware. Now I just want you to imagine that you are moving away from that rainbow now, as everything that it needed to convey to you has taken place. And that for the idea of future messages, you can return to the rainbow spectrum at any given time. And when I snap my fingers, you will return back into the present moment, wide awake and alert. Okay. So what did we experience there? In this partial theta wave advanced daydream state, I was certainly feeling that I was just guiding the entire meditation, but I was being able to really imagine this rainbow, just being able to go within it, and feeling that that was becoming my entire reality. So it was going more than the idea of just observing a focus as it pertains to an apple in a lighter trance state. When you're going into the partial states, the states of the theta, you are immersing yourself in this type of advanced daydream. So the rainbow now becomes your reality. You have no particular sense, or hardly any particular sense, as it relates to this current physical realm. The rainbow realm was part of your focus, and that is a theta state. So really being able to go into this advanced daydream, again, it all just depends upon the person that's viewing this. If you're able to concentrate and go very deeply into the rainbow spectrum, just as if you could feel the sensation of the colors touching you, touching your face, touching your hands, touching your body, and actually being able to feel that, that's a theta state. That's helping you to really connect and becoming very immersed in that advanced form of daydream. Okay? So that is theta. That is the partial dream state, or the partial trance state there. So again, the full dream state really can't demonstrate in this particular video, because it's all about being able to really get yourself into a state of comfort, just like you're getting ready for bed, and that your environment is so pristine. Everything within your environment is just perfect. It's the perfect ambience, it's the perfect surroundings. Everything around you is just so comfortable. and you're just letting your mind still be active, and you're letting your body rest completely. No strain, no effort, no conflicts. You're simply allowing the body to become lighter and lighter, and you just feel yourself drifting and drifting and drifting until you just hit that sliver between the awoken state and between the dream state. And that is connecting you to the full state. And when you are in that particular presence, now you can request to see certain things of yourself. You can go into your own Akashic records. You can communicate with a past life version of yourself. You are very, very lucid in regards to that advanced state of depth perception. And you're able to move into that. So again, it takes a little bit of training as it pertains to the delta, to the full trance state, which could even lead to some even into ensoulment, if that is an agreement that you have. But again, it's all about just being able to work where that little cusp, that little sliver, the same experience that one would have if they were about to astral project. Being able to actually leave their body and being able to move into the astral realms and do some exploration. So just as your full out trance state, your delta state enters that, you're moving into that particular frequency of advanced vibrational coherence within a very unconscious mind, right? Now, you are able to create certain forms of triggers so that you are able to recall what you are receiving, right? Some people can, in that sense, have a little bit, just a very small bit, of familiarity about what's happening in that delta state. Some can just basically pass right out, but as they pass right out, they're noticing that phenomena is taking place. They will actually speak when they're completely unconscious. Some particular entities can just basically come in, and you're completely zonked out. The conscious self is no longer a part, and you're able to access this information as it pertains to this energy that is communicating with you. Some of these energies may represent that of your own higher self. It may just be your own soul communicating with you as well too. It could be guides, it could be other extensions of your consciousness, extraterrestrials, extra dimensionals, etc. And being able to communicate with you. Very similar to what Edgar Cayce went through, relating to his time on the earth, where he was basically known as the sleeping prophet. Being able to lay on his couch, being able to go into this very relaxed state, being able to see a white light, and being able to access the Akashic records, the Book of Life, etc. And being able to retrieve this incredible amount of information. And he was completely unconscious. His own conscious self had no idea what he was saying. And so this is why he had a scribe. He had recording devices to being able to document what was being discussed. We had people here writing down information. So again, that is a full-out delta state of trance. So again, that's something that we can achieve, but it requires a little bit more work. Some people are naturally gifted, naturally aligned into those particular types of energies. Some require a little bit more development. I'm still developing this. Again, I get this on occasion here and there just before falling asleep. And when I have had that, it's sensational. There's so much information that can come available to you in those particular forms of states. So this is our summary for this particular episode. The light, the partial, the full states, depth perception, ensoulment in that particular way. A lot to investigate, a lot to explore on your behalf. And so again, it's all about going past the inspiration state, that you're working with everything that has not served you, and you're able to transmute that into something that does serve you. And as you start to go into that type of inspirational state, now you can start writing. Okay. Before we conclude, I'm just going to give a sample of the idea of the inspiration state. As I was talking about it before, and decided I'll give you a little bit more of a sample. Okay. Just if I was to channel a form of inspiration right now for everybody that's watching this video. Okay. So, what I just wrote required no thought of myself, right? I was going into full inspiration. I was not thinking about what was being talked about. All there was basically a command line. Something to share as a message for everybody that was watching this video, everybody that is watching it, right? So, not thinking, just letting the flow come through, I wrote the following. In connection, light holds the memory of deeds, solidified in moments accessible now to create possibility with your relationship to the infinite. And so it is. Okay? So I had no idea about what was coming through. I just felt the flow. I just wrote it down, wrote it down, wrote it down, wrote it down. Now, what state was I in when I wrote this down? It would be this. That was the state that I felt. I felt like I went into alpha right away. Went into this light trance state. I let everything else around me just completely be dismayed. I was focusing entirely on the gravity of the energy that was coming through. I was focusing on the pen, writing all this down as it came through. That's it. That's an inspiration state. That to me is my alpha state. That's how I'm connecting and just letting this information. I'm not saying, okay, spirit guides, okay, higher self, come on through. I didn't say that at all. I just said I had a message for everybody. I tuned in, bam, done, right? Now, if you're just starting out, you can certainly say that. Higher self, be with me. Soul energy, soul essence, be with me. My guides, be with me. Convey a message to me for me to interpret to others. And now you have something like this that comes through. It's focus, it's concentration. You're just kind of in that light daze of this energy. It's like what Abraham Hicks refers to as being in your vortex, right? That's exactly what's happening, is I'm just in my alpha vortex here, and I'm letting this information be conveyed, okay? This is something that you can work with, and I encourage everybody who's been watching the Psi Academy to just, again, have a diary, have a journal handy, just start writing out moments of inspiration like this, okay? Keep trying, keep working on it, keep developing it. Make it a continual daily plan for yourself. Persistence, patience, interpretation, that's the key. Keep yourself open, keep yourself trusting, and interpret in the way that you feel is appropriate to share and convey these messages. Most importantly, for yourself. If you want to share this with other people, go ahead, of course. But let this be something that enriches your soul, because you have no idea where this is coming from. You feel the energies, you just want to get it out. That's the important aspect. So this is us working into more depth perception as we look into the capabilities that we have of accessing this depth perception of our own subconscious, unconscious, superconscious that is now coming into our logical, conscious, aware minds. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Psi Academy. I'm Brad Johnson, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next video. Take care, namaste, and may it be well with you.